Hey everyone, it's Words About Dune once again for the third year in a row. This is Book 3 of Frank Herbert's Dune series. We did cover the first two in the past 2 years. They're okay, I guess. Anyway, here's a condensed recap of Dune Messiah. If you don't care for the recap, go ahead and skip to 15 minutes and 4 seconds where the episode begins in earnest. And it's that time of year again where I must awaken the petty Shah Emperor Ben with a little song from my hero.
Oh no.
Gurney Halleck.
Oh sweet Lord, no.
We toil all day, the Harkonnen way. Hour after hour, we long for a shower. Just workin' and workin' and workin'.
You liked this one better.
Yeah, it was shorter, and therefore
it's
better.
Much shorter.
Is Dune Messiah the most misunderstood of Frank Herbert's novels?
I would argue yes. The big spoiler is Paul kind of sucks. And I'll admit he's hard to read.
I'm putting that as a quote.
There was
a lot more standing around and talking and thinking about the things that they just said than I expected there to be. There was a lot of that. Spoiler alert at the end of this book. But the book is just kind of like, and then Duncan raised his knife. And then Paul was like, "You're Duncan again." And Duncan was like, "You're right." And he put his knife down.
He doesn't like writing action. He doesn't give a shit about action. He likes his ideas. These books are a vehicle to communicate his political thoughts and philosophies, and it's fine.
Let's start with the fact that he talks about the deep prana bindu, and my note was not this shit again.
Dude, that's what I'm here for. Bite me.
Paul won after the last Dune. He's reigned for 12 years. Everything is great.
He has wiped out religions, peoples. He's forced everybody to confirm, and he is now worshipped as a god. Alia is also godlike. She kind of has her own devotees.
People see her face on their toast in the morning.
We've got a conspiracy of powerful individuals in the universe who are plotting to take out Muad'Dib. We've got Scytale, the Tleilaxu face dancer. The Tleilax are just straight up genetic engineers. They are like the literal worst, and everybody hates them, but they have products that everybody wants to buy.
Give me all of your Choam stock. And the Emperor would be like, okay, I don't even know what those are anyways.
So Scytale is one of the conspirators. Then we have Edric, the guild steersman.
Yeah, his role seems to be being less smart than his fellow co-conspirators.
In parallel to this plot, they've made popular the Dune Tarot. It clouds prescience. Alia explains it in one sentence, and then it is never addressed again. The next two conspirators are two of our old favorites. It's your girl, Gaius Helen Mahayim, here with her Gom Jabbar to fuck shit up. And then everybody else's favorite character, the living embodiment of a wet blanket, Princess Arulin. And they need to find some way to kill him. But how do you kill a man who can predict the future? Kind of.
She would wonder about his sex habits, thinking how odd it would be to mate with such a one. My note says, what? I guess. I pictured him as naked at first.
Why? It specifically says he's wearing a jumpsuit. So I've read the book again. I still don't fully understand the plan. So, they create this Duncan Idaho Gola. The Gola, I'm going to spoil this, is conditioned to kill Paul.
I don't want to be called Duncan anymore, Mom. Call me Hate.
I think you outduned me. Because...
Oh my god.
Paul's beloved Chani is going to die. And I think for whatever reason, they see that coming. The conspirators do. And if you order Duncan Idaho to kill the one person he was supposed to protect above all others, he will have a crisis of conscience, and it might be enough to shock him into getting his memories back. We'll put Paul in a desperate situation where he can revive Chani, and he'll have to put himself in servitude to the Bene Tleilax to secure Chani's resurrection. Paul doesn't have an heir. Chani is not able to get pregnant.
Gonna be real with you, Ben. I got pregnant reading this book, just thinking about Paul. Yeah, and she's like, you know what? You can fuck a Rulin.
The future Paul sees, the future he kind of has to fulfill, is that when Chani gives birth, she dies. She's telling Paul, like, this is your last chance, bucko. Put a baby in me. He's like, if you come back here pregnant, I will literally have somebody wrap a piano wire around your neck until you die. And Paul's like, wow, when did I get this way? I'm a bad guy. This is not where I thought I'd be in 30 years, you know? And Chani's like, I think a Rulin's serious this time. And he's like, yeah, so what? She's a Rulin.
What's she gonna do? Raise my kids when I'm gone?
Taking the shape of a Fremen girl. And
yeah, he kills everyone in that household.
Yeah, that is going to be Saital's way into the palace. Nate, a stone burner glows so bright that it casts foreshadows. Because it's foreshadowing?
Yes, I know.
Everything I ever knew was a lie the first time I saw an ocean. And I realized, like, oh, wow, the universe is a lot bigger than the desert. And that's why Paul has to die. Paul, why don't you just use your space powers to find the guy? And Paul and Alia roll their eyes and they're like, Stilgar, that's not how space powers work. The historians imply that Paul died of prescience.
Not true. He dies of being stabbed to death.
So, Rulin, your dad's been doing military exercises on that prison planet we put him on. And she's like, whoo. She literally, like, this is where they bring up maybe letting Rulin have Paul's babies in council, which must have been super awkward for everybody who was not married to Paul.
I'm open to suggestions, Paul.
What if I let Chani get you started and then I come in? And Paul just straight up asks the Duncan Idaho Gola, like, hey, what's their intention in giving you to me? And he goes, they intend for me to destroy you.
Like, he's going to be conflicted on what to do with this Duncan Idaho Gola. And also, he's going to be really attracted to Alia. So is this the Dune equivalent of it's actually a 5,000-year-old dragon?
My favorite Arulin beatdown. She insists that Arulin needs to explore a potential brother-sister pairing. This offends Arulin, who is trying to work her magic here, you know, by insisting the council vote on whether or not Paul should... Like, look, everybody agrees I'm hot, right? Okay, like, I'm desirable. So after this, Mahayam just kind of, you know, tells Arulin she's ugly and stupid and fat and...
No one actually wants you. I'm gonna make a motion in the council that we all vote that you're ugly.
This scene requires a level of tact.
So yeah, she's wondering about the tarot. She's doing this big stupid religious ceremony, and she's like, "My flesh desires a mate." She's
What? What the fuck are you talking about?
So she's like, you know what would be a good idea?
You're just
Let's
making
work off
shit
the
up.
sexual energy by fighting a robot, but it's not a robot?
Oh god.
Really? Come on. She probably should have just... But instead, she's like... She
You're
doesn't
bleeping a lot of this.
understand. Every time you hit it, it becomes faster and smarter. And then Paul walks in the room when she's got up to like 11 lights or whatever. And he's like, huh, she's got kind of a femaleness to her. She's kind of developing into a woman. I'm gonna just stare at her for a moment, and then I'm gonna leave. And then Stilgar is like, this one must have a mate. As you do in the middle of the room, you're like, ah.
That was awful. That was so much worse than I thought it could be. Have all these memories to have lifetimes worth of knowledge and then have to go through puberty again.
What can I say to make this less awkward? Let's talk about a giant worm. Oh dear.
Edric basically comes right out and says that Paul's religion is bullshit, and so Stilgar wants to execute him. Alia finds a body in the desert. Do you have any thoughts about this, Detective Nate?
Absolutely nothing. I'm stumped. I'm sure everything is fine. This is just a normal occurrence. Fremen wander out into the desert and die all the time. Let's break for lunch. Who wants spice burritos?
Fortunately, there is one real hot dude who is about to tell her he doesn't see her as any different than anyone else.
Be thankful that we didn't just right here on the landing pad. Yeah, I remember he talked about a moon that falls over and over and over and over and over again.
He has to take the path he doesn't want to take. That he has to accept Chani's death. Oh my god. The moon could be Chani.
I just asked that.
You've been ahead of me this whole book.
Let's make this old woman, have to walk a few miles to see me. Wouldn't that be funny?
It's really smart, and the way you're saying it, it doesn't sound really smart, but the way Frank says it, it sounds really smart.
They never comment on...
No, this plot thread is entirely lost. Guy's Hellenheim's making long-distance calls on Paul's plan and just running up his phone bill as her last...
That's why Paul makes her jog 2 miles.
So, Chani finds out Arulin's been feeding her contraceptives. Where did you get that he said to go kill her?
I have no idea where I got that from. But now the book makes a lot more sense.
My god. This is when a mysterious Fremen girl shows up at their doorstep. We, of course, know this to be Scytale.
Wait, what? We do?
Because he knows this is a trap. Once he goes to this meeting, he is locked in. There was the feeling in him then that his body had become the manifestation of some power he could no longer control.
But what if he decides to do something different?
Nate, I don't think you're going to need my help to tell everyone what happens next.
Paul gets a dwarf. Paul's walking down the street and then BAM! Nuke goes off. Bomb releases massive amounts of J-rays, which is a radiation that dissolves eye tissue.
I don't think that exists.
That's stupid.
Paul, for himself, just leaves his burnt out, empty eye sockets to make everyone around him very uncomfortable. Paul is going to have twins. But whenever Paul talks to Chani, he only refers to the baby as a singular. I think he doesn't know this because powerful oracles cloud your vision.
Law, our highest ideal and our basest nature. Do not look too closely at the law. Do, and you'll find the rationalized interpretations, the legal casuistry, the precedents of convenience. You'll find the serenity, which just is another word for death.
And Chani's like, look, I was just asking you what you wanted for breakfast.
His priest is secretly working against him, and later he's executed. What's next on the agenda? At some point, Paul is gonna turn to you with a tear in his eye and be like, she's gone. And he's gonna seek comfort in you. And then, you're gonna stab him. You're gonna stab the shit out of him. You're gonna kill him. You're gonna take his man flesh. You're gonna put it in a freezer. You're gonna grab Chani. You're gonna put her in the freezer too. You're gonna get them cloned. We're gonna have some cloned emperor and empresses. It's gonna be awesome.
Then Paul utters the trigger phrase, she is gone.
And then Duncan Idaho is like, must kill Paul. And then Paul's like, did you say something? He's like, no, and also I've reawakened. And Paul's like, cool, come with me.
A terrifying, repetitive noise. Harak! Harak! Harak!
Paul throws a knife so goddamn well, it blows Saital's mind, literally, and he dies. And Paul's like, alright, that's gonna be Leto, and that's gonna be Ganima.
Ganema.
She's like, stay with me, Duncan. Show me your man flesh. Oh yeah, Gaius Helen Maheim, she's dead now.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, wasn't that a great recap? So great.
It's like I was there. Dune, of course, as you know, is a sci-fi masterpiece by Frank Herbert, in which, like C-3PO, they killed him. So, without C-3PO to guide your stations to do this, the guy that controls that right now...
What? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I guess it's that one time of year that I can't avoid it. I can't ignore it. I've got to talk about Dune with you, Ben. It's words about Dune. Prepare to get your Bindu's prana.
Hey now, you can't talk this way about Dune anymore. Denis Villeneuve has changed all of that. Dune is cool now. I'm the popular one. You're weird for not liking it at this point. Unless you're going to tell me you've somehow, like, bandwagoned your way into liking this book. Do you like this book? You bandwagoner?
I feel like it's cool to like the movie, but, like, don't talk to me about the books, you weirdo.
I think it hit the New York Times bestseller list again.
Huh. Did any of the sequels?
Probably. I don't know. Anyone could buy their way onto the New York Times bestseller list. But the point is, my good friend Denny's, as I call him.
Denny's, America's Diner, is always open.
He made Dune cool again. And Timothy Chalamet lended his chiseled jawline and his just
I believe it's
hair.
pronounced Timothy Chalamet.
I don't know. There's a lot of... Is it French? Is he French? What is that?
No, he's Midwestern.
No,
Midwest American.
That can't be.
Midwest American. Sorry.
He's far too beautiful to be one of you.
I mean, I didn't say that he came from us. He came to us.
From the stars.
Born and raised in New York. So that's kind of like being French where I'm from.
Yeah, if you can see the ocean, you're basically...
You're a dirty European.
Yeah, you're
Disgusting.
basically European. So, we are here today for our third Dune installment.
Dune Children. One thing that I do need to discuss before we get into Dune Babies.
Hey, yeah, okay, fair. What is the one thing you need to discuss?
So I have a package here.
A package?
Addressed to Nate, not my actual name, which, as we know,
is Chad Dingleton.
Is Chad Dingleton, right?
Yes, I remember. And you opened it.
No, I didn't open it, because there is a letter attached to the outside that said I have to read the letter first, and I can only open the package after a certain condition has been met. So here it is. Dear Nate Creed, I'm writing to you now because I have entrusted to deliver this ancient package to you. I was cleaning out my dad's second basement, looking for inspiration for my next Dune book, when I came across this package just sticking out of a crack in the wall. It was sealed up and addressed to you. Not only did it have a name and an address, but a timestamp as well, 8/14/22. I was gonna mail this to you in time for something called Words About Books. Said that you cannot open this package until you have read every single Frank Herbert Dune book. So of course I couldn't open it either. Anyway, all the best. Be sure to check out my latest book with Kevin, coming out at the end of the year, Rover of Doom, story of Paul's dad's grandfather's loyal dog. Okay, yeah, you get the point. So there you go, Ben. I've got a thing here. But I can't reveal it for another how many years?
I mean, you could forward it to me.
3 years?
I could probably open it.
Nah. It's fine. It's clearly addressed to me by definitely Frank Herbert. Mailed here by definitely his son, whose name is escaping me. Brian. That's right.
That's Brian, yeah. Oh my god. Okay, so Brian Herbert sent you... I imagine these are the secret notes to an unplanned or an unannounced Dune project?
We're not going to know until
we finish all the Dune
them.
books. So you're planting the seed now. So there's a mystery here.
Yeah.
That we tend to only read one Dune book a year. So in 3 years, we will know what Brian Herbert sent you.
Yes, from his father's second basement.
You know it's going to turn out to be some kind of perishable food.
Or a box of spiders, I don't know.
Well, if you listen to our episode on Hunters of Dune, it may well be a box of spiders.
I don't think he did. It said something called Words About Books. I don't think he listened to that, but I hope he did.
We know Kevin didn't listen to it because he does most of his writing while he's out on his walks.
That's how we got Rover of Dune.
I want to hear, what was the bull's name? What was the bull that killed him's name? I want to hear his story. Can we get Bull that killed Leto's dad of Dune?
It's all that stuff that, for some reason, Frank Herbert didn't find interesting. He didn't want to write a book about a bull goring a man to death.
Gore through the screen!
I think he'd be more likely. I think he'd be more likely to write a book about a bull goring a man to death than he would be to write a book about dogfights in space, which is not a thing that ever... If you haven't listened to any of our other episodes, I think not very highly, to put it politely, of the Brian Herbert, Kevin J. Anderson extended Dune. I don't know what the hell they call it.
The Dune Extended Universe, or Expanded Universe.
Yeah, I just can't imagine someone missing the point any harder. So basically, we've covered the first 2 Dune books. We've got 4 episodes on Dune 1, which are not very good. We were brand new podcasters.
We were young and we needed the money.
Yeah, it's not our best work.
That was actually our first ever breakout episode.
Yeah, which was unfortunate.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, that one really took off. It shot our monthly downloads to the moon, to numbers we would not see again for like half a year. Because, boy, did people really want to hear a podcast about Dune, and boy, did they really not want it to be the one we made. But I think we did better with Dune Messiah, and I think now, we've been doing this for 3 years now, so I think maybe we're finally ready to talk about Children of Dune. And I think our own podcasting journey kind of mirrors the writing of Dune. The first one is clumsy and all over the place, but it's got a lot of heart, you know?
Yeah, has a lot of extra parts, too. It's just...
Yeah. It's maybe like several hours longer than it needed to be.
But because of Dune, we started doing this weekly, because we were like, otherwise this will be a 2-month endeavor.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, Dune is the foundation upon which this podcast is built. I'll stand on that. So then with Dune Messiah, like Frank Herbert, we sort of realized some of the mistakes we'd made with Dune Part 1.
We realized we sucked and...
that weren't clear, maybe to an audience, and we decided to clarify our points and really hammer home and what I think might have been an unexpected twist in that those episodes weren't absolute hot garbage. And now... despite being 15 minutes into this recording and not having yet said a word about the book, I think we are really bringing it home for Children of Dune. And I think I want to get this started off on a note I rarely get to take on this podcast.
You're going to sing one of the Gurney songs. All right, let's do it.
No, the songs do remain terrible. He never got better at the songs. But... I'm going to engage in a tiny amount of gloating.
Oh my god.
Because you divulged a deep personal secret to me very recently. Do you want to tell the people or should I tell the people?
Which of the secrets is this?
Nate, aka Chad Dingleton, does not hate Children of Dune.
Surprise!
Oh my god. Well, that's the end of the podcast, actually.
That might actually be all you need to know about Children of Dune. I finally turned him. This is no longer a tedious obligation he has to endure every year. He's like me now. And you can
how long
expect
is that going to last?
Well, you can expect another package in the mail with your standard state-issued douche philosopher badge and handgun.
Perfect.
And with that, you can go to any Chipotle and tell a protesting vegan to stand down.
All right, sweet. I actually went to Chipotle tonight, so that would have really come in handy, but...
You should tell them you're a
I'll keep
provisional
that in mind.
officer in the douche philosopher corps.
Douche philosopher core.
Now that there's two of us, it's a corps.
Editor Nate here. Just to correct Ben, we have more people in our douche philosopher corps because they are supporting us on Patreon. So thank you to those people, and if you want to just stipulate that all the money should go to Nate because he didn't forget about you in your darkest hour, just let me know. All right, so I didn't realize you were the only douche philosopher.
I'm the only one brave enough to call it what it is.
Yeah, so I don't know what it is, but when I read the book, first of all, it was like clear for the most part. I didn't get any of the I'm just gonna throw a bunch of weird foreign words at you and hope that you just figure it out by context. Here you go. And things went along at a decent pace. And I feel like the story was more enjoyable, and the whole plans within plans within plans thing, it came off better. Like, everyone was doing their own thing. There were more moving pieces, but I could still follow the action really easily. And when there was a reveal, it was like a little interesting twist, but it didn't seem to just come out of nowhere 4 times in a row by 4 different people telling you all there's a traitor here. Like, I don't know what it was, Ben. I don't know what it was, but
So
the
I have
whole
some
thing has been
thoughts.
more engaging.
I have some thoughts on what it might have been. So, to start it off, Children of Dune takes place, I want to say maybe 10 years after Dune Messiah. How old are Leto and Ganima?
9.
Okay.
Oh
So
my
it takes
God,
place
you don't
about...
even remember these basic details, Ben.
Well, because I don't think of them as children. I think of them as a multitude of shared consciousnesses. But it takes place 9 years after Dune Messiah, at the end of Dune Messiah. So this is spoilers, by the way. If you have not read the first 2 books, if you want to save yourself for the movies...
If you didn't listen to the, 10-minute recap on Dune Messiah.
Yeah. So, but everything is big spoilers. So, 9 years after Dune Messiah, Paul walked into the desert to die, and his children were left behind to be raised by some combination of Stilgar and Alia until they could come of age.
And the Princess Irulan.
And the Princess
Then
Irulan.
She realized that she loved him as he wandered into the desert to die, and she was like, I'm gonna raise your kids.
Yes.
And
it was a weird twist.
undesirable.
I didn't see it coming, but yeah, Princess Irulan, Mother of the Year. But
Better than the biological parents, both of whom decided to die. Yep.
Things are not going well in Arrakis. Alia has shockingly not been the best regent. Leto and Ganima are starting to realize that they are going to have a problem trying to manage their own risk of abomination. And abomination, if you need a reminder, is for these children who are born with their full ancestral memories. They have all of these thousands, millions of personalities within them, all vying for control of the body. And if you're preborn, if you had that from birth, you never had a chance to develop your own personality. So you're particularly vulnerable to influence from your past lives, and one of them can take possession of you, and that is always a bad thing. And we're going to find out that that's sort of what's happening to Alia, and Leto and Ganima need to avoid that. And Leto is also concerned that there's a problem with the Empire. It's not what it's supposed to be. And he sees a couple possible futures, but he still has to decide on what track he's going to take, and he doesn't want to make his father's mistakes. All of this ties into your experience of this being a little bit more enjoyable, I think, by a few factors. One, with all the weird ideas and words like Prana Bindu, Bene Gesserit, Preborn, Abomination, Prescience, Dune Navigators, all that crap. You already know what they are. He doesn't need to redefine it to you. He's not adding a bunch of new stuff at this point.
Yeah, it only took 1,000 pages or whatever.
Yeah.
And finally, we got it. 1,000 pages, 2 movies, and a sci-fi series that was as long as those movies, like 3 times over.
But yeah, so you're into it. He's not adding a bunch more. You already know everything you need to know about this world. And now he can just sort of move the pieces within it. That's part of it, I think. The other part of it is, I've said before many times that I enjoy Dune not necessarily for the plot, but for the random insights Frank Herbert uses the plot as a flimsy pretext to wax philosophical about. Frank Herbert is kind of first and foremost a political thinker. Dune is about how humans organize themselves in societies. It's also a secondary bit about ecology and the sciences we use and our relationship with our technology.
Thing about like how can we scheme, and also would it be possible to get like X-wings in there to pew pew at each other?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's what he was thinking.
We're going into fold space now.
X-wings!
Yeah, maybe I misinterpreted it, and Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson really understood it better than I did. But I'm going to suspect when Frank Herbert writes 3-page long diatribes about the inherent problems of choosing one's electors, that he was maybe more interested in the political theory than the X-Wings. But again, I'm not his son. I don't know.
Maybe he left a thing in that attic where it's just a bunch of drawings of him inside of X-Wings. Like maybe that's what Frank Herbert wanted all along.
Yeah,
maybe Frank Herbert saw the future, and he knew that Dune would basically be ripped off, tons of it ripped off and put directly into Star Wars, and he really
lived
liked
to see Star Wars.
Yeah,
he sued them.
He wouldn't have seen it, Ben, had he not put it into being. And also, did he really sue them? Ed or Nate here to tie up Ben's loose ends. He did not sue. He joked about it.
So that's one part of it. I do think his messages in this one is a lot tighter. In Dune, we talked about he's throwing a lot of shit at the wall in Dune, and that's kind of like early writer mistake we see time and time again of you go your whole lifetime building up all these ideas for stories you have and characters, and when you get your first book, you want to make it as good as possible, and you just put it all in there. You put all the good ideas in there. But you can have too many good ideas. I think Dune suffered from that a little bit because the whole spice as oil thing never really panned out.
What are you talking about? CHOAM is still around.
CHOAM as space OPEC never really panned out.
Still don't know what CHOAM even is, and you said it never really comes up, but it's still around, Ben.
It's still around. It's always in the background. He never abandons it entirely. But when they talk about, oh, well, we have 51% of the CHOAM shares, does that matter? Does that ever come into play in the story?
I don't know what that means, so
exactly.
No.
So
what is a CHOAM? I don't know what it is. Is that the stock market? Is that
it's some combination of the stock market, OPEC, and basically just an interstellar human civilization-wide marketplace. Yeah. And it never really comes together as its own unique idea. And thankfully, he doesn't spend a lot of time on CHOAM in Children of Dune.
Maybe we'll get CHOAM of Dune, and we can go into depth with that a little more.
But I do think his ideas are really focused around a more interesting ecological problem. So in Dune, their problem is they don't really know where the spice comes from, and also Dune is an absolutely inhospitable planet to live on, and they would like to change that.
They should have called it Hellhole.
We're hot off the Ernest Cline stuff, and I am not trying to make Brian Herbert another Cline, but God, I don't know if Brian Herbert has a DeLorean, but if he did, he'd also drive it very near to the point and then probably right past. Maybe he does it in an X-Wing. But yeah, so in the first one, it's more about Frank Herbert I know he studied or he reported on something where they were using these poverty grasses to support sand dunes to help rebuild beaches, which were pretty critical habitats for a bunch of stuff. And he was fascinated by that. And that kind of gave him the idea for terraforming this desert planet. And he did all that stuff. But the ecology of Dune was also kind of all over the place. It wasn't really clear what message he was going for. Whereas in Children of Dune, they've started terraforming Dune, and only a handful of people really truly appreciate that changing the entire ecosystem of a whole planet might have an adverse effect on the native life of that planet. And the native life of that planet also produces your magic space drug that you rely on for your entire society. You thought, like, yeah, let's terraform the desert. Why not? It's a useless fucking desert. Well, it's useless to people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you could get rid of it because you don't fully understand the complex relationships. And so...
Well, I have a theory here. You ready for this? The whole idea that man-made climate change is going to lead to total disaster, that's just some bullshit made up by the Ixians, and we gotta just plow forward with this, okay?
Hang on, I have a highlighted portion that perfectly sums this up. There is like rain on Dune now. Water is falling from the sky. Water is poisonous to the sandworms. The sandworms produce the spice. And so some people do come to the council to try to convince them that they really need to rethink this terraforming business because it could put our entire civilization at risk. We haven't really thought it through. And Alia says, there will always be some desert. The worms will survive. I think that perfectly encapsulates the modern attitude towards a lot of environmental problems. Well, it's, we can't kill the whole Earth.
There's always gonna be a little bit of plastic in our rainwater, so don't worry about it.
It's still mostly water.
Yeah. I mean, look, once enough of the ice around Antarctica and, like, the Northwest Territories melts, we could just move there. Easy. I highlighted that as well.
Yeah, it's perfect. So we have a very clear climate message, or an ecological message that is relevant to us, more relevant every day. And we also have kind of a very clear, I want to say political, but also like anthropological theory he's exploring here.
Can you imagine if we went to some sort of desert area and we just started like trying to convert it to like what we wanted? Wouldn't that be like bad and dumb?
You mean like what if I just made a golf course in the middle of the desert and then like built a couple of cities in there, and then each building had a golf course and consumed so much water that the Colorado River was on the verge of collapse? Or what if we backed a controversial underdog political revolutionary who would change our entire system of government, but then when he took over, he just kind of started doing the same stuff that the old guy did, but now he was in charge?
I don't even know which reference that is. It sounds like pretty much
Every revolution
Everyone
there has
ever?
ever been. Yeah. I just think he is on point. Frank Herbert is on point in this one. He knows exactly what he wants to say. And it's tough because I don't know if we want to start summarizing and see if we come upon it naturally, but maybe I'll give a preview just so you're in the right frame of mind to see the stuff I want to highlight. The preview is, and the rest of Dune, actually, the rest of the Frank Herbert Dune books deal heavily with this theme of adaptability as a society. Frank Herbert, if you need a refresher, started his career as a journalist and political speechwriter. He's deeply involved in politics, and he was very interested in forms of government and how can a human society thrive? Like, how can we ensure our continued existence into the future when the future has so much uncertainty? And that's kind of why he gives his characters the power of prescience, to sort of prove that if there is a future you can read, we're already in trouble. Because that means we've lost the ability to adapt. That means we're locked into whatever happens.
So, like, if a bunch of climatologists or ecologists, whatever the hell they're called, if they're like, hey, we're going to be locked into this future where there's massive climate shift if we can't do something right now.
Yeah, if
like,
our
that'd be
government
bad.
if our government has become too bloated and slow moving to act with purpose in the face of a grave existential threat, then we're going to die.
Thank God nothing like that is happening in our time, am I right? Our government is quick to react and competent, and definitely the way that it's set up is selecting the right people to lead us. But just perfect.
I have, I think, 3...
You know, I didn't cry while reading this book, but I feel like I should have been crying when I read this book. I feel like every time it got a little too real, I should have just started weeping.
So I identified, I think, four big themes. I think we're going to cover maybe the first half of the book in this episode, maybe less.
Probably
But
less.
Yeah, within this first part of the book, I have 4 themes. One of them is the ecology that we talked about. One of them is an inherently impermanent universe, and then the problem of trying to foresee the future in such a universe rather than just preparing oneself to adapt. Then I also identified he really harps in this first part on traditional values versus competition. Because in the first part, a lot of the main characters are heavily conservative. Like the Fremen are conservative people. They're religious, set in their ways, and their ways have served them well they don't like change. But they also think of themselves as warriors and the survival of the fittest. And how do they reconcile these two beliefs that they heavily value survival of the fittest, but then when they find out that their own culture might not be the fittest to survive, they start trying to artificially preserve it by cheating. How do they deal with that? And that's really represented in Stilgar's character in this one. And then I just have another theme, which I called good government. Leto, his whole mission in this is to try to create a government that is going to ensure humanity's basically eternal survival. Because right now, humanity is on track to stagnate and die. The government has become too bloated, the people have become too complacent, and all that we are waiting for is an inevitable existential threat that we will fail to react to in time, and then we will die. And Leto is trying to fix that. And with that in mind, I think we can begin summarizing.
Yeah, let's start with Frank Herbert came up with the concept of containerized shipping, an idea that the Japanese later commercialized.
What?
That's what Brian Herbert said.
Frank Herbert came up with the idea of containerized shipping?
Yes! Yes!
Is that true?
That, my note is, did he? Question mark?
We're not the railroads are containerized shipping, right? And they've been around a lot longer than Frank Herbert.
I think they're talking about the big, like, metal containers.
I understand they're talking about big metal containers on a boat.
I looked it up, and I don't think it's Frank Herbert.
No.
Brian. I just want to...
Pirates put stuff in boxes, dude. What? Brian Herbert's an idiot. I'm sorry.
All right, we can get into the actual book now. I have down the opening chapter. Stilgar sits in the room of Leto II, Paul's son, and he thinks about killing him. And he ponders if that's morally right. And he's like, well, they're only 9 years old. Can I kill a 9-year-old? But they've got all these genetic memories in them. And what if they're the abominations that Bene Gesserit talk about? And should I kill them? Is it all right to kill a child? And he ponders for so long that daytime comes and the day shift guards come in.
Morning, Ralph. Morning, Sam.
Well, I think Stilgar, to set up Stilgar, he's more interested in this book than he was in Dune Messiah, where he's basically just a sycophant.
In Dune Messiah, his role is to suggest something that is obviously wrong so that someone can correct him and explain to you, the reader, what is actually going on.
In this one, Stilgar has become more of a father to Leto and Ganima.
Better than their actual father, am I right?
Better than anyone blood related to them. I guess he's blood related to them through Chani. He's like, what, their great uncle? He, in the first part of this book at the very least, he represents like the quintessential conservative viewpoint. He is deeply entrenched in government now. He is wondering at how different things have become. Have we made a mistake? Did we make a mistake siding with these Atreides in the first place? The answer is yes. Should I end it? Should I put things back the way they were? And it's not so much that he wants to kill a child, it's that he's thinking how easy it would be to try to go back right now. If these kids die, the whole thing collapses, and Dune can go back to being Dune, and the Fremen can go back to hiding out in the desert, and we're going to be done with this. But he can't. He's too far in now. And he's got to see where this goes. And it puts him at all kinds of odds because he's trying to justify it. And it's really not as simple as obviously it's wrong to kill your best friend's children. It's more a case of if these kids live, they are going to destroy my culture, my entire way of life, and my home. But killing them would also do that. Because according to all the laws, like following that culture is what put me in charge of these kids in the first place. I think Stilgar is actually an interesting and somewhat complex character in this one.
He is a lot better than he was last time, where he was just the dumb guy who doesn't get it.
I think
he's like,
they have
hey, Paul,
something
why don't you use your magic powers to just see into the future? Come on.
Stilgar had been reduced to a religious fanatic, and now Stilgar...
He's like, maybe that's not good? Question mark?
Well, he started... It's the point of no return. There are forests on Dune now.
Yeah,
Fremen
but
no
humans...
longer wear still suits.
Humans are really good at logging.
But the point is, everything about Stilgar's entire way of life was built around the fact that he lived in a place where water basically could not exist. And every drop had to be conserved with the utmost care. And following the rules was life and death. And now, it's not. And people
now the
are
kids
acting
say,
different.
Yeah, they say, fuck you, old man. I don't need to live under your roof anymore. I'm gonna go to the big city. And yeah,
Now when we
just
go on
leave.
vacation, they never look up from their stupid phones. They just view the whole thing through their phone's camera as they're Snapchatting and Instagramming and WhatsApping. And
They don't want to get jobs anymore as, like, warriors. They want to work in, like, TikToks.
they want to work in the TikToks. They want to be influencers. Nobody wants to work at the steel mill anymore. Steel mill's been closed for 50 years. Because of you, probably. Wanting to be influencers.
I remember when the water used to be a brilliant orange.
Back in my day, I just worked all summer, saved up $600, and went to college on my own dime.
Yeah.
Stilgar's some boomer fuck thinking about stabbing children. You know what? You've brought me around to it. I don't think he's complex at all. I think he's an asshole.
There is a part where I did just say, okay, boomer. People of the new communities are more volatile, more open. They quarrel more often and are less responsive. And just put, okay, boomer. Whatever.
Well, and that is Stilgar's role. And I got to imagine, Frank Herbert was not a young man when he wrote this. And so I bet he's fighting with that himself, Kids these days, the music they listen to, it's just noise.
Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me.
So Stilgar spends an uncomfortable amount of time thinking about murdering children before it's dawn. And, oh yeah, you remember that one... Actually, those two characters that were conspicuously absent from the last book, despite one of them having terrible songs that kept showing up, and the other one being the mother of the main character? Well, they're back.
Oh, you mean Gurney Halleck and Jay? It started with a J. Jessica.
Yeah, that's her last name, though. First name is Lady.
Yes, that's true. She's not really a lady anymore. She's just kind of Paul's mom. He gave her a planet.
Yeah, she's the Duchess of Caladan?
I don't know if he even gave her a title. I think he's just like, she's like, I want Caladan. And he was
and
like,
also Gurney's bod. His scarred face really does it for me.
Do you which Gurney are you imagining? Are you imagining Josh Brolin or Patrick Stewart?
Patrick Stewart. Yeah, they're coming back from Caladan.
Yeah.
What are they going to come here for? What if they think Alia is kind of a bad person and maybe also a bad several 100,000 people?
Do they just jump into Alia
yes,
getting possessed? Is that like the first thing that happens with her from
Not
her perspective?
right away. I
Okay.
think that's within the first 10 chapters. I have
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah,
It's very early.
I did a chapter summary that for some reason just stopped at chapter 5. No.
Well, we know Alia's nervous, and Alia's been breaking all kinds of rules. There's a few things Alia's been doing that she's not supposed to do. One of them is she has been keeping herself artificially young by using Bene Gesserit techniques to suppress aging within her body, which is something all Bene Gesserit can do, but they have come to the unanimous agreement that they should not do that, because then people would realize that they have these awesome powers, and they might actually start paying attention to them. And the Bene Gesserit prefer to manipulate from behind the scenes. If I were them, I'd
always come from behind.
If I were them, I'd probably manipulate my aging, but then go on a space trip, but then come back as my nephew. Be like, oh, my uncle died, but we looked a lot alike.
That would be the smart way of doing it, but...
Or I just wouldn't leave the Bene Gesserit planet.
Yeah, I guess I never thought about that as a possibility.
But the Bene
Oh,
Gesserit they're better than me. They're better than me. They play the long game. They know it's not about the individual, it's about the group. You gotta, if a human would stay in the trap and wait for the guy to come get him out of the trap and then kill the hunter so that he'd eliminate a threat to his species. I remember guys Helen Mahayam play that NBA music. I remember what she said.
No, she's dead. She doesn't get NBA music this time. She's dead. She's gone. The end.
Coffee's for closers only.
Unless she comes back. Does she come back?
I don't think so.
She one of the people that they put in their easy bake oven and bring him back out?
No, I don't think guys Helen Mahayam makes the cut. Though I guess she would exist in Leto and Ganima's ancestral memories. No, she's their maternal great-grandmother, sorry. So that was chapter 1.5. So Jessica's coming back with Gurney Halleck. Alia's nervous because Alia's been practicing essentially black magic. And also, she might have been possessed by one of her ancestors. But which?
Who could it be? Is it a no-named guy we've never seen before? Is it Count Chocula? I don't know who could possibly... Who is in her ancestry that might possibly possess her?
Hey, she almost got possessed by Agamemnon. So there's that.
Was he a real person?
I mean, as real as anyone that far back in history. There was probably a guy.
I thought his wife killed him for being a dick.
Well, I mean, easy come, easy go. Alia's been struggling for a long time with the pressure of what she is and the pressure of ruling without any help, without Paul, without Jessica. She begins to collapse, and always the inner voices are there demanding that they be allowed to take control.
But you know what might help? If she could see the future. Maybe she should do some of this little space drug. The little space Casablanca. A flashback tone is played, even though we remain in the present. This is just an incredibly clever and provocative way to signal to the listener that we're entering Alia's mind space. I'm Sjorgen Bjorgenborgensen. My magnum opus when I was alive was talking about words about books.
Alia, have you ever seen Pretty in
The
Pink?
last episode of that.
Alia, join with me, and you will know a power greater than any in the universe.
If anything, Alia is the old James.
God damn it, Alia! Just divulge all of your state secrets. The people deserve to know more.
Actually, I'm kind of
children
okay
in
with
my
destroying
time, but I did spread my genetic information everywhere, so I'm living on in Alia's genetic memory. The editor of this episode keeps fading me out.
Yeah, back in my day, I used to do a bit of spice myself, but, have you ever had Flintstone's chewable vitamins?
Jiggle, 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 jiggle. Alia, it's me. Your loving grandfather and one-time murder victim. Don't listen to any of those other fools, Alia. They don't know what it means to be an ingenious master planner. Remember when I killed your dad? I do. I can help you, dear granddaughter. I can help you learn to jiggle, just like me. I can jiggle so hard that those other voices disappear. And all I ask in return is that you bring me some boys.
What, did you say Casablanca?
Bandito Blanco. I have done a lot of drugs in my time, as you
I can tell, yeah. Yeah, you're so street smart and jive talking.
Yeah, she gets the old space crack that helped form her existence, and she likes to indulge in that.
She's trying to have Paul's prescient visions. She's trying to become...
But she's not a man.
The weird thing is that Bene Gesserit Reverend Mothers, I believe in future books, do experience some small level of prescience. They don't seek it out and they don't trust it anymore for what will become obvious reasons. But yeah, I don't know why Alia's having a lot of trouble with it. I guess it's just not in the cards for her. Also, she might have tried something other than just more drugs.
Oh my god.
Because that's what Alia does. Alia just starts doing, like, all the spice.
But for some reason, it's just not working.
I recently learned you can do a molasses enema. You could probably spice that up a little bit. That doesn't work. She doesn't have prescience. And so she begins collapsing under the strain. And this is a thing she thinks she can hide. This is I guess, the closest we come to the traitor moment of... I have this great secret. There's a traitor in your midst. Alia's like, okay, I've become an abomination, but I've got to hide it. And Leto immediately sees it. Ganima immediately sees it. Jessica immediately sees it. Duncan Idaho immediately sees it.
Yeah.
Stilgar's kind of iffy on it. Like,
pretty much everyone is like, yep, that's not Alia anymore.
Oh yeah, she's definitely been possessed. Like, from the very second she is possessed, everybody knows.
Except for Princess Arulin.
I just think Princess Arulin doesn't care. I don't know. At this point, Princess Arulin's just like, I just want to write my book, man. But yeah, so Alia keeps interrupting that novel to drag Princess Arulin into meetings that she doesn't want Princess Arulin to be in, just so she can yell at her. And even Duncan Idaho is like, why do you make her do this?
Why is she here? But, Ben, there's other schemes at play here.
Arguably the dumbest scheme of the book is at play here. I enjoy this book quite a bit, and I actually even like Faradin as a character. I like the Carino part of this book, because, again, like with Dune, we're always told about the Emperor, but we never see him. He barely shows up. What Frank Herbert writes about House Carino is actually kind of interesting. Like, this time we finally have Carino characters who aren't just comic punching bags. It's not just Arulin getting bodied every 5 seconds.
Though she still does. Less so.
But yeah, so the Carinos have put together one of their awesome plans.
It's a brilliant plan.
A plan only Joe Exotic himself could have come up with. They are going to train, and you're going to be blown away by how brilliant this is. They're going to train 2 giant tigers to attack.
Tigers, Ben.
Laza tigers. A special breed.
Specific type of tiger, okay.
They're a special breed, genetically manipulated of the ancient Terran stock. It had erased some of the original tiger features and refined other elements. The fangs remained long. Their faces were wide, eyes alert and intelligent. The paws were enlarged to give them support on uneven terrain, and their sheathed claws could extend some 10 centimeters. I don't know what that is in the units God pays attention to.
God.
But they're sharpened at ends by razor tips of whatever, and their coats are flat and tan, which makes them,
word.
They really blend in with the sand. So, it seems like the dumbest plan ever conceived of by a person.
Well, hold on, Ben. What are they gonna do with these tigers?
They're gonna put a chip in their brains so that they can be remote controlled, but also they need to be trained to attack Leto and Ganima.
Children wearing a specific uniform.
Yeah, as long as these 2 kids are wearing this coat, then the person with the remote control can point them in the direction, I guess, and let them go. And the whole plan revolves around, like, imagine you had a distant relative who actively wanted you dead, and they send you a coat for Christmas, and you don't throw it in the garbage.
So no,
the whole plan revolves around the irresistibility of these cloaks.
It was a really good cloak. I don't know if you realize this. Those were really fancy cloaks. Anyone
it said
would want
Supreme on them.
They're made out of the finest, 100% cotton.
There's so many people who, like, everybody suspects a trap, right? Everybody suspects a trap with these cloaks.
There's something wrong with them, right?
Well, there's something wrong with House Carino sending the people who dethroned them a gift. Obviously.
Well, okay, let's think about it from Princess What's-Her-Nuts' perspective. She wants to get her son on the throne, and she's like, all right, we gotta do this covertly. Let's train some tigers.
What is stealthier than a tiger? Hear me out.
But you know what? Let's also make it so the tigers have to be controlled by a person. And also, they'll only kill people in these cloaks. Now, that's perfect. Stealthy. No one could trace that to us. It would just be a random animal accident. Don't question why there are tigers on Arrakis. Shut up. But the linchpin
here... No one's going
to
suspect foul play when Leto is found mauled to death by a tiger. A tiger that could not have survived on Dune.
And not only that, but the linchpin to this entire operation, which I think is supposed to be, like, covert, is cloaks that they have to send to them.
And they have to choose to wear. Because this is the other thing. They send these cloaks, right? And the whole council is agonizing over this. They're like, we suspect a trap, but we can't find anything wrong with it. Just throw them away. Who cares? Give them to the poor. Give them to 2 poor kids, and then see if a tiger attacks them.
Not only that, but they would also have to just venture out into the desert alone.
Not only is this the dumbest plan you've ever heard of, it is also immediately deduced by Leto and Ganima. They see these cloaks, and they're like, they're going to have a large animal try to kill us. And Ganima's like, you're obviously not thinking it through. They're going to have 2 large animals try to kill us.
And then they high five.
And then they go out, put on the cloaks, and try to get killed. It was ingenious in its stupidity.
I like to think that Leto and Ganima, they don't actually need these tigers as part of their plan, but they just felt sorry for Wincesia or whatever, so they just wander out in the desert to give her a fair shot.
Yeah, I mean, while we're in the council just spitballing ideas, I'm going to spitball one for you. I mean, I like the tiger idea. It's a pretty good idea. You know how we have a guy controlling the tigers, though? What if that guy had a baseball bat? And he just bashed him. And then he left.
Yeah, because later on, spoilers for a really old book, a big dude does hold them captive. Because they're still in the bodies of children.
Yeah, they're 9 years old.
They're 9 years old. You don't need to come up with an elaborate tiger plan to kill them.
No. You just give a guy a baseball bat. You don't even need to smuggle it onto the planet. There's trees there now. You can make it there. You just whittle yourself a baseball bat, and you just beam them. And then you write a little note that says, the Harkonnens were here. And you walk away. And,
you spray some gang tags around.
Yeah, no one's ever going to know. Also, the tigers are of a species native to Seleucia Secundus.
Really?
They were called Laza tigers. a special breed brought here to the planet Seleucus Secundus almost 8,000 years past.
Oh, swing and a miss.
This is the book that changed Nate's mind about Dune.
And then Princess What's-Her-Nuts also decides, like, that tiger
Are you talking
trainer...
about Winsisia or Arulin?
Yes. I know Arulin's name. Yeah, Winsisia is like, we can't let my son Farad'n know. And
he
also...
would not approve of us sacrificing dozens of children for our stupid tiger plan, which is your first indication that Farad'n might be a good guy.
And also, they have to kill the tiger trainer because he knows too much.
It is literally, like, it just takes a brief detour into Joe Exotic. I don't even know if Joe Exotic was born yet. Oh, Jesus. You know what, though? Like, if this does not prove that Frank Herbert was not particularly interested in the plot, I don't know what was. Because he thought for 2 seconds about what they might do, and he thought tigers, and he was like, that's fun. It's tigers. Fucking tigers, man. Genetically manipulated tigers. That's awesome. And it's so good. Like, if it were any less stupid, it would be boring. And that's another reason I think you're keeping your interest. Because they didn't use Chowmurky or Chomoronomy or whatever the
Chomoronomy.
Chumbawamba.
Chumstrology is the fake one. Chumonomy is the real one.
Chumbamancy is the science
multiple words
of poison,
poison.
by dipping a sock in a liquid and then like putting it on their foot and it's absorbed through the foot skin. That's how often these people poison people, that they have a word for poison by foot skin. So he was really proud of that. He was really proud of that Chowmurky shit. He never lets that go. That's in every book. He never lets that go.
Oh my god.
He always mentions that. Like, that they poison each other so often that they have a different word for how it's poisoned. And it's like, that's not that special. But anyway, he did one thing. He's very proud of it.
Maybe if enough people start getting mauled by tigers, we'll start having special words for getting mauled by different types of tigers.
I think he read somewhere that, like, you know, language specializes. It's like how the Inuit people have 15 different words for snow, because it's actually very important that you know the consistency and temperature of the snow if you're going to be out walking on it all day. And that's great. And I think he thought that, and he's like, yeah, so these people are so treacherous that they've got 15 different words for how to kill each other. But they only have 2, and they're the dumbest sounding words he could possibly conceive of. I do love this book, though. It's one of my favorites. Yeah, so tigers. We're doing tigers. That's fun. That's awesome.
That's our plot that's going to kick off soon.
It doesn't work. I mean, spoilers, I guess. That is not how Children of Dune ends. It does not end with the title characters being mauled to death by laser tigers on the sands of Dune, if you were wondering. There was a lot of tension there.
It works, except it works in favor of the children.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. That's the other dumb thing. The tigers are then killed by the children. So it's a failure on every level. The tigers couldn't even kill the children.
Yeah, well, in the defense of Princess Winsesia or whatever, the children that she was throwing away as prey to these tigers didn't have knives or guns on them. Maybe they should have.
They should have gone to a rougher neighborhood to get those kids. They should have gone to an American school. Oh, I could be topical too, Frank.
How do I reach these kids?
Yeah, I do like that people have plans and other people use those plans to further their own goals.
No, it is actually good because there are several conflicting interests. You know what they are. You understand that they're taking steps to try to further their aims.
And it's not straight good versus evil like the first Dune, where it's like the Harkonnens were just evil slave-trading bastards helmed by a fat jiggling guy, and the Atreides were these noble, loyal men.
Well, no, and even the good guys like Leto and Ganima are obviously the people we're supposed to root for. They use people, and it's not subtle this time. You can't possibly confuse what Leto is doing. He is going to destroy Stilgar's culture. He is going to force people to become adaptable. And
I mean, to be fair, Stilgar's culture sucked. It was time to get rid of it. Go into the grave, old man. It's us kids who are taking over now. We have different thoughts and beliefs than you do.
Well, no, but in all seriousness, this gets...
I'm gonna vote Space Obama into office, and you can't stop me.
There is seriously a question throughout all of Dune of, is Leto a good guy? After Children of Dune, I think
it's all downhill from here.
No, the remaining Dune books kind of discuss what Leto does and the legacy of that. And if he did save the species, if it was necessary, or is he actually just like the worst human being that ever lived? And I think that actually is kind of to Frank Herbert's credit, that you can have a character who you're not sure if he is a messiah or literally the worst human being that ever lived.
Why not both?
It is a little of both.
So Jessica's gonna come to the planet, and I gotta let you know here, I gotta let the readers know here, I was finishing up a Joseph Stalin book on his time just prior to the start of World War II for the Soviet Union.
It has been 5 minutes since you talked about Joseph Stalin on Words About Books. So
yeah, it's been a bit. It's his time in power all the way up to the start of World War II for the Soviet Union. I don't remember if I crossed some of my wires or not, but Lady Jessica, and actually a lot of these people do some Stalin-esque shit.
You confused Jessica with Joseph Stalin. It's easy to tell them apart. One of them has a mustache. But yeah, Jessica moves swiftly to suppress dissent.
Yeah, she comes to the planet. She tries to buy Javid? I don't know how you say that. I called him Javid.
Wow, you went probably more ham on it. I might have pulled a Nate here. I called him Javid.
David, but with a J.
Kind of, yeah.
Maybe
I just called him Javid. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? We're dealing with the combine on it.
That guy's basically like in the employ of everyone, I think. Like everyone is using him as a spy or a lover, or both, in the case of Alia. And yeah, Jessica's like, oh, I could use this idiot here. And then there are people who I guess don't bow to her quick enough or something. And she's like, all right, round them up. Question them, Gurney. Gotta break out the old thumb screws, maybe punch them a couple times. You're gonna get answers out of those guys, and we're going to use them to find other dissenters, and we're just gonna start locking up Alia's loyal followers.
Whoa! They are purging the fuck out of each other.
And Stilgar's
yeah,
in on
Stilgar and Gurney coordinate it. And Alia's kind of mad, and Jessica's like, well, I mean, they didn't tell me either, so you can't get mad at me.
Jessica literally walks off the ship, and Alia suspects that Jessica is there. Jessica has rejoined the Bene Gesserit. Ostensibly, Jessica was sent here to investigate whether or not A, Alia had fallen into abomination, and B, if the breeding program for the Kwisatz Haderach could be solved with Leto and Ganima. And Jessica takes 2 steps off the ship, says, hey, Stilgar, good job arresting those dissenters for me. And then she says, Alia, oh my god, you're an abomination. It is just like written all over Alia's face. Her whole face looks like somebody else's face.
And most of the people actually also figure out exactly who it is as well. They're like, oh my god, you're an abomination. Oh my god, is that the Baron?
Alia, why have you developed a sudden interest in sleeping around and just eating everything?
Why are you jiggling, Alia? I don't understand. Yeah, I did like that. The Baron is like, hey, if you just let me control your body sometimes while you're fucking dudes, I mean, I'd appreciate it. And if you don't, I'm gonna give you a really bad migraine. So, like, start fucking. Am I right? Invite some of those dudes that look like your brother into your chamber.
Oh, I forgot he wanted to Paul.
I will never let you forget, Ben.
They left that out of the movie.
Especially because the Baron in the movie was a lot more, like, sinister. He wasn't, like, a funny joke man.
Well, I don't think Frank Herbert intended that to be a funny joke. I think he intended that to be quite sinister. You just kept picturing him nude.
And then he was nude in the movie.
I don't know why. He was.
That's
yes.
right. I understand Dune on a whole other level, Ben.
But yeah, so Jessica's back. She's here to take care of business. If Alia's an abomination, what does that mean for Ganima and Leto?
Well, don't do drugs, kids.
Stop it. Get some help.
Or just do them in the right amount. Your eyes should change color.
We also forgot. Do we need to bring up the preacher, or should we just wait till later? Because he does a lot of preaching.
Yeah, I guess we could bring up the preacher. I think all we need to say at this point is that recently there has emerged from the desert a blind Fremen, which, as you know from Dune Messiah, not allowed.
Except for in the case of that one guy's child, that was allowed for some reason. But he's dead now.
You get kicked out of the tribe. You get kicked out of the tribe.
Yeah, and then you just go move to the city and, fuck the tribe.
Yeah,
right?
you can. It's like the Amish. There's this preacher who's got his eye sockets like burnt out, which that's how Paul's eye sockets look there at the end.
That's weird.
But he looks old. Like he's been in the desert for a while, so he's very tan. His skin is very weathered. Nobody can really tell. But everybody kind of wonders, and he talks like Paul, and he preaches, and he says these profound things.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
And he's getting a lot of public support. He's kind of like a Martin Luther figure almost. Like Alia, as the head of the faith, has become corrupt, and everybody kind of senses that. And this preacher comes in, and he starts preaching like let's get back to the core messages of Muad'Dib here. And let's really like damn the excesses of Alia. Let's look at what she's wrought. And everybody's kind of not sure. Is it Paul? It is Paul. It's obviously Paul.
Well, what?
It becomes obvious that it's Paul. Like, it's so obvious that it's Paul that the first time I read this, I thought it was not going to be because it was just too obvious. Like, it's obviously got to be a fake out. But no, trust your instincts. That's Paul.
But he puts on a little bit of a show to make it so people always wonder, I guess.
Yeah,
because they're always like, I'm pretty sure that's Paul. I'm like 99% sure, but
he never does any of the magic that Paul could do.
He's being led around by some kid. Paul didn't need a kid.
Paul didn't need any assistance. Paul could see with his oracular vision. And the preacher never claims to be Paul, which is another thing. If he's Paul, why doesn't he say so? But there's doubt. And he's just sitting there and he's stirring up trouble. And what's he trying to do? That's a good bit of plans within plans, because I'm still, and I think this is a me problem more than it's a book problem, I'm still not 100% sure what Paul was trying to do as the preacher.
I think I know what he's trying to do.
I have a few ideas, but we'll get to that later. I think that's all you need to know for now.
So let's see, where are we now? 'Cause the book jumps back and forth between perspectives.
I think time-wise, the next thing of importance that happens, I think Jessica heads out to talk to Ganima first.
Yes.
Leto and Ganima are unsure of what they want to do, and I think you need to know a little bit about their characters and their relationship. They are constantly speaking to each other in old dead languages, such as French.
Crazy gibberish.
That's not a Futurama joke. They actually speak French, and nobody knows what the hell they're saying.
Is that really what it was?
That's one of the languages, yeah.
Oh my
they also speak a few other more ancient languages. Like, I think they speak, like, some kind of proto-Indo-European or something, but they are basically, they're very creepy to everyone who comes across them, except for a chosen few, because they're obviously wise beyond their years. They constantly talk down to people, or they're trying to teach people when they should be the ones being taught because they're 9 years old. And they know exactly what the other is thinking at all times. There are some differences between them. Leto is a little more, I almost want to say boisterous.
I was going to say adventurous. I don't know.
Yeah, he's more outgoing. He more risk-taking, less careful in his speech. He's more aggressive and assertive. Not that Ganima isn't assertive, but Ganima is more concerned with how it looks. She understands more that people don't understand them, and she wants to make them feel comfortable, whereas Leto does not care about that. I think Jessica chooses to talk to Ganima first. Or maybe maybe the twins choose to let Ganima talk to her first. Because the twins are both trying to avoid possession, and then Leto is sort of keeping something from Ganima, but she doesn't know what. And Ganima's interview with Jessica goes pretty well, but Jessica's left very unnerved by it. Because, and I thought you would enjoy this particularly well, especially when she eventually talks to Leto, because the conversations between Jessica and her grandchildren are just non-stop tearing down of Jessica's entire character.
Yep.
It's everything you've been trying to say.
Great. I think more than once people were like, so why did you abandon your daughter on this planet and just like pieced out? What was that about? Kind of a shitty mom, if you ask me. Maybe you should quit being so shitty. It's kind of too late now.
It's funny, too, because Jessica comes down. She's all pissed off that Alia has fallen into abomination. And Ganima and Leto are both sympathetic towards it because they obviously know the struggle. And they haven't had to endure the same pressures that Alia has had to endure with being in charge of the Imperium. And Ganima is the one that tells Jessica, maybe you should feel a little bit sorry for Alia. Yeah, she fell, but, she didn't have any help, and she didn't ask for it.
Yeah, there's your problem.
It's kind of your fault.
Your 4-year-old daughter didn't ask you for help, so, you weren't obliged to help her. Go to another planet and just sleep it all off.
And yeah, so Jessica is also really struggling. She's honestly struggling harder than Stilgar, I think.
Yes.
Which makes sense though, because Stilgar has actually spent time with the children.
Right. Yeah, there's a whole lot of her going like being shocked by the children, by Duncan, by Veradin.
She's like, man, you leave for 10 years and everything's different. It's like people don't just stand still and wait for you to get your shit together. She's constantly surprised by the age of the children, because the children have her genetic memory, they have Paul's genetic memory, and they basically have easy access to maybe millions of years of human history. And Jessica is a child to them, and they work her so easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
there's a whole lot of them being like, wow, that was really easy to kind of maneuver her into a way that exactly where I wanted her mind to go. Wow. I thought this was going to take a little while, but I guess I could go grab a little snack before I go to bed. That was easy.
So I don't know. Is there anything else you want to hit on that first talk Jessica has? Because I'm trying to think what happens chronologically after that. Does she go back to the capital before she talks to Leto?
No, she talks to Leto the next night, I think. Then she goes back to the capital.
Okay. So the conversation with Leto, that's an interesting one. That's the one I thought you would particularly enjoy because he is mean. Ganima was try to understand Alia, try to understand how hard it was for her, and yes, she has fallen, and yes, that means she's probably going to have to be put down like old Yeller. But it's sad when you put down Old Yeller. You don't go in and just beat him up, you know?
Try to understand that Alia has fallen because she didn't have, like, a mom who could, like, guide her. I mean, I'm just spitballing here. Like, maybe she needed her parents. Sadly, her mom died. Wait a minute. No, wait. Her mom didn't die. You're her mom. And you suck. Jessica, I'm glad that she's just being knocked down several pegs. God, I just did not like her for her whole, I'm gonna make a crack baby and then abandon it, and then come and put it down.
Yeah, the conversation with Leto, I'm looking back through real quick just to see if there's anything I want to call special attention to. I think Leto fucks up several times during this conversation, though. It is satisfying to watch Leto tear down Jessica, because that means that obviously Frank Herbert was not unaware of some of the problems Jessica makes. But Leto doesn't he doesn't soften the blow at all. He's like, hey, I don't blame you for leaving. We all like to do what's comfortable to us, and you can't help that. You're just you.
Yeah,
if you'd been more like me, you could have endured, but you're you and you're weak.
Yeah, you know how the Gom Jabbar, like, the whole thing was just you take your hand out as quickly as possible, you avoid that pain, no big deal. If you want to take your hand out of the Gom Jabbar and go fuck off to Caladan for like 20 years, you do you. That's the whole test of the Gom Jabbar. So, cool, good job, Jessica. Glad that you're back on this planet. Glad we're meeting for the first time. I'm your grandson, by the way. Hi. Where have you been all my life?
And Jessica keeps trying to assert her authority over the child, and it doesn't go well. And Leto, because Jessica is acting in such an amateurish way, and I think this might be another thing where Frank Herbert did actually get better at writing, because he does a good job of showing as well as telling, because it's still Frank Herbert, but he shows you through the course of the conversation that Jessica is constantly on the back foot here. She's trying to play this game of words where we have been told repeatedly, and Jessica thinks of herself as this hyper-trained, very intelligent, very observant Bene Gesserit who is usually in command of whatever conversation she's having. And Leto is just landing shots right and left. She can't follow his train of logic.
He pulls out the original Leto.
He's just making her look dumb.
And it gets to the point where she's like, I'm gonna Gom Jabbar this guy.
Yes, she literally is holding a Gom Jabbar, and Leto literally says, you think I'd let you use that? Like, this 9-year-old is basically threatening to do violence. Like, he's basically saying, I could stop you if I wanted to. And we believe him. But he lets something slip, I think, that does come back to bite him in the ass. And that is when he says that Jessica inquires as to whether or not the twins are susceptible to possession and what they're doing to try to prevent it. And he says, we believe there is something. We cannot succumb to the spice. That's paramount. And we must not suppress the past entirely. We must use it to make an amalgam of it. Finally, we will mix them all into ourselves. We will no longer be our original selves, but we will not be possessed. So his plan is not to do what Alia did. Alia found a powerful personality in her past who could suppress the multitude that was intruding upon her.
And all she had to do was sleep with some hot nubile boys occasionally.
Big facts. And eat a bucket of chicken every night.
I could picture... That is actually the food of choice that I picture him eating. Just get me the greasiest fried chicken.
That is the food of weak decadence. The bucket of KFC.
That's how they knew Alia was possessed. The first ever KFC opened in Arakeen, and they were like, this isn't good.
Alia walks down the stairs one morning, and they're like, damn, Alia, maybe you want to do some naked sword fighting again? Like, I don't know. You getting your 10,000 steps? Yeah, so Leto and Ganima's plan then is to assimilate all of the personalities into something new. So he's not going to become possessed, but he's not going to be himself anymore either. But what can he do? He never really had a chance to develop a self. So he's going to have to construct a self from the combination of all these other entities.
And Jessica's like, I am going to scheme to make this child do a bunch of drugs.
Well, and that's the thing. When he said, we cannot succumb to the spice.
And she's like, oh, you're succumbing to that spice.
I think he showed a fear, I think. And she's like, that can't be. That's a weakness that can't be. And this will, in many ways, be Jessica's final mistake. But yes, so Leto lets it slip that he will not do the spice agony. He doesn't want to do what Paul did. He doesn't want to change the spice into the water of life or whatever. But, well, you gotta face your fears sometime, buddy.
And better to face it when you're 9 years old than, like, later on. So,
and later on. Leto also likes to do this thing, and this is a thing with him even in the next book, where he and Ganima can temporarily give themselves over to the memories, and he can, like, briefly become and do the voice of whatever person he's channeling, and he purposely channels the Duke Leto.
Yep. He got her.
And he tells her to shut up. He literally tells her to shut up.
Someone needed to.
He accuses her of helping the Sisterhood in their plan to salvage the breeding program by breeding the twins together.
He's like, this motherfucker just told me, in the voice of my former lover, but importantly not husband, his grandfather, that I need to shut the hell up, and also I'm a bad mom, so I'm gonna feed him space crack until he can't feel things anymore. That'll teach him a lesson, that little shit.
It's funny because, obviously, the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood has considered breeding him and Ganima together, and Jessica asks him, do you believe us to be such utter fools? Indeed I do.
Yup.
Your sisterhood is nothing but a bunch of damn fool old women who haven't thought beyond their precious breeding program. Ghani and I know the leverage they have. Do you think us fools? Jessica asks, what leverage? They know you're a Harkonnen. It'll be in their breeding records. Jessica out of Tenidia Nerus by the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. That record, accidentally made public, would pull your teeth too. You think the Sisterhood would stoop to blackmail?
Absolutely.
I know they would.
That's all they do. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And so Leto...
You said in the first book that their function in the Empire is almost entirely political. So yeah, I do believe they blackmail people.
Leto is trying to get Jessica to understand the challenge he's facing with the Empire. He's trying to hint to her that he has a dilemma. Does he lean in to the Atreides divinity nonsense, or does he become what he considers to be a good emperor, somebody who is going to actually benefit his subjects in the long run? And Leto is thinking of an impossibly long time when he says the long run, because it's not going to show a lot of immediate benefit. We'll put it that way. And it's just kind of going over Jessica's head. And so Leto has to give up. But the fault is also kind of on Leto too, because unlike Ganima, Leto is not attempting to reassure Jessica. He's not attempting to see things from her perspective. He's just frustrated that she doesn't get it. And I think that does factor into Jessica's decision eventually to make Leto undergo the spice agony, because he's kind of a dick. And she needs to know, because, well, this is a thing that's always going to be out there hanging over him. You know, Paul wasn't supposed to do the spice agony either, but then one day he decided he had to. So if Leto can't survive the spice agony without becoming an abomination, then that's a problem, because he lives on a planet full of spice. And so I think Jessica's like, well, okay, kid. You know, Leto kind of eats his words at a certain point, where it's, if you'd taken a lighter tack with her, maybe you could have convinced her, but you didn't care what she thought. Now, you know.
You're getting crack. You're getting a lot of crack.
I hope you got your Narcan handy. Jessica's injecting you with a metric ton of spice. Yeah. We got a little carried away here, Nate. We've been recording very long, and it is very late.
You basically said that you're planning on this just being a 3-parter, so I've resigned myself to that fate. So
I think there's enough to talk about in Children of Dune. I think because Frank Herbert finally is really laser focused on his ideals in this one, and learning to write. His writing is better. That is a factor. It's not like worlds better. It's not going to change anyone's mind about him, but it is more palatable, that's for sure.
It's future Nate having a prescient vision that this will in fact be a 3-parter. The groundwork has been laid. The twins have come to some sort of decision, and as we'll learn next week, they're going to pursue something called the Golden Path, whatever that is. Jessica is going to be a thorn in everybody's side. Alia has to try to maintain her grip on power and her sanity. Duncan Idaho, what's he doing? He hasn't shown up yet, but he'll be here. Also, there are tigers. That's cool, I guess. Join us next time when we dive in further. If you want to support our show, or you want extra content, we now have a Patreon. It's at patreon.com/WABpod. I ended up having to cut a decent amount of this episode. Can you believe that, with all the stuff that I left in? Thought about cutting more, but it's the 3rd book of a 7-part so far series. So I figured you guys knew what you were in for. If you're listening to this, this is what you came for. We've also got a Twitter at WABpod. We've got an Instagram, Words About Books Podcast. We've got a blog, blog.wordsaboutbooks.ninja. I hope I'm not forgetting anything, but Ben can tell me if I am, and I can ignore him. See you next week.
The saga of Dune was far from over.
Alright, is that it? Are we done? Can we stop jiggling now?
I never stop.
I'm not as experienced as you are. I have a wife and kids. Phase out the noise, and if I can't do that, I will just publicly shame you by saying that you wrapped your mic cord around your armrest, your fancy lazy boy armrest, I'm sure. Bring me more boys.